Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Real Science Exchange, the pubcast where leading scientists and industry professionals meet over a few drinks to discuss the latest ideas and trends in animal nutrition. With me tonight is my trusty, rusty co-host, Dr. Clay Zimmerman. Clay, typically we're drinking beverages during the Real Science Exchange, but tonight we're having ice cream.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's because we are at the Ice Cream Social after the American Dairy Science Association award ceremony. So why we're doing this tonight is we're going to be honoring the winners of the poster contest and the oral presentation contest. And to start off, our first guest is Lautaro Rostoll. Did I say that right?
You did.
Pretty good.
That was a good hard roll.
I almost rolled the R just a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
I'm proud of you.
Lautaro is, he's the president of the GSD. So, Lautaro, give us some background in terms of who are you, what are you about, go ahead.
Yeah, Scott. So I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Guelph. My advisor is Dr. Michael Steele. I work in gut health on calf, trying to improve the health of those animals during the pre-weaning period that we know is a very stressful period of time for the animals. So we're trying to understand how we can improve immune development on those animals and how have creative ways that we can reduce incidence of disease overall. I've been president of the Grad student division for a year. I'm almost done right now. And I want to say thank you, Balchem, for sponsoring some of these events showcasing some of other events. So thanks.
For that. Very good. So what is GSD? What's the purpose, the history, and what are the benefits of GSD to students?
So the Grad student division for ADSA, it's run by the student members, and the idea behind it is to try to provide a platform for professional development activities and network opportunities at the conference. And we also organize our own events during the meeting with that same purpose, to generally stuff that are outside scientific conversation, more related specifically to professional development. So we have a workshop in one of the days. The one that we had yesterday was on scientific communication, how to improve scientific communication and how you deliver your message to your audience. Then there's another event that we have that is the career luncheon, that we have a panel of people that they just finished their degrees and they just landed their first job either in industry or in academia, so that the students have an opportunity to see how that transition is, and they have an opportunity to ask questions on how they should prepare their resume, how they should contact people, and how they can improve their job hunting to sort of find their first job.
Yeah, nice, excellent.
So we also have My Dairy Career Tool, that it's a platform that we have in ADSA that they post jobs in industry and in academia, and the members of the organizations, they can use that resource as well.
So, Lautora, what was the most rewarding part of being GSD president?
Yeah, I think it's like being on the general board and seeing behind the scenes how a meeting like this is put together, and seeing the amount of work that it takes to put a meeting like this. So they start organizing the session symposia, what everything's going to take place a year before. And even the venue, you have the venue contracts probably 3-4 years in advance. So seeing how that is put and the amount of work that it takes and all the logistics is great to see, and it's also really good for my professional development. And I certainly want to keep providing my service to this great organization. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how often does the board meet?
Once a month at the beginning, and then when you're getting closer, probably twice a month. And then you have 2 meetings in person on the, right on the venue.
Wow.
Yeah. Where you come and see the convention center, all the rooms, and you kind of figure it out where everything's going to happen.
Ah, very nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, we interviewed about 20 or so students this week, and it was amazing. The quality of the kids coming out of universities these days. You guys should be proud, but we were very impressed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Got a bright future in front of them. So tell us a little bit about your role, Lautaro, as president, and how much longer will you be president, and then who's going to be following in your footsteps?
Yes. So my role as the president, I'm an ex officio member of the general board of ADSA. So I participate in my role in the organization of the meeting. So I have to oversee our own grad student board that is composed of 5 other members, and each of them are in charge of organizing one specific event. And we have webinars throughout the year also on professional development. So my role is kind of oversee that board and also have a seat on the general board organizing the meeting and linking them together. I'll be finishing my mandate at the end of the meeting, actually. And then Luke Kean from University of Cornell is going to take the president's role.
Okay.
And it's 1 year's dairy foods division is the president, and then 1 year is dairy production.
Okay, very well. So now tell us about Lautaro. So what are you going to do after you graduate, and what's your aspirations for the future?
Yeah. So I just signed a contract with University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Congratulations.
To start,
Great school, by the way.
Yes, I'm really excited about that. To start a faculty position next year there on immunology. So I'm going to continue some of my work that I've done during my PhD on calf health and immune function in calves.
Congratulations. Good
Thanks,
luck to
brother.
you. Wish you the best.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for spending some time with us tonight.
Yeah.
Our next guest here at the Ice Cream Social is Dr. Corwin Nelson from the University of Florida. Corwin, when we're usually at the Real Science Exchange, we're having some beverages, and tonight we're having ice cream. So I'm going to ask, what's in your dish tonight?
So I got vanilla ice cream with hot fudge and pecans and some whipped cream on top.
Nice,
Wow.
nice.
Wow.
And Clay, I didn't ask you. Your dish is empty.
Almost. It's vanilla.
Okay. All right. Very well. And we got Kari Estes over here from Balchem. Kari, your dish is empty as well, but what was you having?
I had vanilla ice cream, caramel sauce, chocolate jimmies, whipped cream, and a cherry on top.
Wow, nice. Excellent. I just went with the vanilla with the caramel. Corwin, sorry, we dispensed with all the fun. So you're the organizer of the contest for the oral presentations and the posters. Tell us a little bit about yourself first.
So I'm an associate professor at University of Florida. I've been there for 9 years now, hard to believe, but I work on a general area of nutrition and immunology, dairy cows.
Okay, very well. And can you give us an overview of the contest? You know, how did it come about? How long have they been doing it? Some of those kind of things.
Wow, how long have they been doing? This has been a pretty long-standing tradition for dairy science to do these contests. So just a little bit of an overview. So when the students submit their abstracts back in February, they're able to indicate whether or not they want to participate in, depending on their level, PhD or master's, if they want to do a poster or oral competition. And this year we did something new where they could present virtually, because we did all the competitions virtually. They could select whether they wanted to present in that, plus in the general session. So that was something new that we did learn something from this year. Just how to communicate that well is a new thing that we had. We've judged these virtually for the previous 2 years because we were virtual.
Yeah.
So
and how's that working out?
Yes. So it was judging virtually has been a great way to do it. You can sit down, go through them, talk in between. It's a great way to do them. When we first did this 2 years ago, judging virtually, like, hey, this is a great way to do it. We should do this all the time. So now we'll sit back and once this is over and reevaluate. How did this go? What do we need to do different? So that'll be something we look at going forward to next year.
Yeah, good. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits for the students?
Yeah, so what the students did in presentation this year in the contest, they had 5 minutes to present their presentation. They uploaded a full-length presentation that everybody can go and view, so I encourage you to go view the full-length presentations. You can do that through the ADSA website. But then they had 5 minutes to present plus 3 minutes of questions. So they have to boil all their research, all their hard work into that short message there to convey all the research and that. So it's a great tool for them to be able to get through and and learn how to communicate effectively that way.
Yeah, very well. In addition to being the organizer, you were also one of the judges, as was Kari Estes, so that's why we've got the two of you together. One of the questions I'd like to ask is, how do you go about it? So, Kari, remind me, you did posters, and did you do oral?
I did orals,
Okay.
yeah.
So, Kari, we'll start with you. How do you go about judging a poster competition?
It's a little challenging.
Yeah.
This was my first time doing it. I really enjoyed doing it. But we actually all have a judge's card that we go off of, all the judges do. And I think we're judging based on 4 different major categories. So anywhere from how the student is dressed and their enthusiasm during the presentation to the actual poster and the data, how they're interpreting the results, making sure there's no over-interpretation, and of course, like I said, the design of the poster too is pretty important.
Yeah. Were there any things that really stood out to you that really kind of caught your fancy?
For me, it was the enthusiasm of the students by far, right? That's what's so contagious. It makes us excited about the research too, right? So definitely was that, their level of understanding of their research and the enthusiasm.
Yeah, excellent.
So, Kari, for the posters, are they showing a poster on the screen, or how do they do that?
Yeah, this is a little bit different with the whole virtual thing, so or the hybrid, I guess I should say. So they have a choice. They can either present their poster, or they can use some slides. So there were students that did both. There were students that did slides and students that did posters, and they were both successfully done very well. So you can do it both ways.
So, Corwin, as a judge for the oral presentations, anything that stood out to you? Well, first let me ask, what were you looking for?
So very much of the same things that Kari mentioned there. Just in this case, it'd be the quality of the slides, just how well they put everything together, every detail that they had filled into there, and then the presentation itself of being able to clearly express themselves, the enthusiasm that they'd have, just the clarity in that. So those were a lot of things. Scientific merit, we look for, what's the quality of the research that they're doing. So that's another aspect that we look for in that. And then the ability to answer questions at the end. That shows how well they really know their research. So that ability to do that, and that's what oftentimes can be a distinguishing factor.
So my guess is that, and my hope is, that there's going to be a lot of students that are listening to this that are going to want to participate next year. What kind of advice would you give them if they want to participate next year, and how should they prepare for their oral presentation?
Plan ahead. Be sure to plan ahead. If this is something you want to do, start thinking about what's going to be in there. Don't leave that abstract to the last minute. Be sure to get that in. Ask questions. So there's an email there for the committee chair. It won't be me next year. It'll be somebody else. So there's an email there for that committee chair. Email them to ask questions, or ADSA staff. So if there's any questions, be sure to ask questions. But certainly don't leave your abstract to the last minute.
Yeah, very well.
So I believe you can view some of the past winners online. Is that right?
So
some of the presentations?
Yes, certainly all of these have uploaded their full-length presentation, so go view them. I'm not positive on previous years. I think they are. I haven't checked for myself.
Yeah.
They may still be there.
And Kari, what advice do you have for next year's contestants?
I think it might depend if they're presenting virtual or not, or a hybrid. I think for posters especially, there's a little bit of flexibility, with doing slides or doing a poster. So I would maybe encourage students not to stay within the black box of a poster, maybe, add some animations. That's one thing about being in person is you're using your poster as your prop, right?
Yeah.
And when we're doing virtual, we kind of lose that. So maybe just use some of the technology to your advantage.
Yeah. One piece of advice I would have, I know that the GST has organized some mixers so that the students could meet some industry people. I would leverage those industry people, call them up and practice with them. Say, hey, here's my presentation. What do you think? Industry people are all the time creating PowerPoints, presenting them to upper management. So just an idea I have.
You sound like you're volunteering, Scott.
I would volunteer, Clay. I got to tell you, I love the students. I'd be more than happy. Call me. All right. Corwin, Kari, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Thanks. Our next guest here at the Ice Cream Social is Allison da Mota Santos. Allison is the winner of the Masters Poster Contest. Allison, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me, first of all. I do consume a lot of the Balchem content in the form of the podcast. I actually just got my t-shirt last week.
Yeah, good.
And also the webinar series. So thank you for putting the content out there.
Very welcome.
So I'm originally from Brazil, Middle West region of Brazil. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in veterinary medicine from the University of Mato Grosso, so also in the Middle West region of Brazil. I always had the dream and the interest in becoming a scientist, especially with focus on reproduction. I did some work back in Brazil with beef cattle reproduction, and in 2014 I had the chance to come to America for an exchange program. And then I met Dr. Persley, who invited me to come back for a master's degree, which I just recently finished. And we did some research on investigating conceptus attachment in lactating dairy cows. And now I'm just starting my first study of my PhD.
So what kindled your interest in agriculture? Did you grow up on a farm?
I did not, no. I grew up in a small town that was surrounded by bee farms mostly. And just... I normally tell people that just by smelling the cow in the air that got me interested in it. And also my mom was a biologist, so I got to go with her to the field and collect samples all the time. So that kind of got me interested in that. And in high school, I did a few internships that made the decision to become a scientist in that area.
Excellent. Yeah, glad to have you in the industry.
Thank
you.
We
need more good people like yourself. Absolutely. The title of your poster was Effects of GnRH as a Resynchronization Tool in Lactating Dairy Cows. Tell us what the thesis was. How did you come up with that topic?
Of course, yeah. So in the dairy industry, there's a lot of, not just pressure, but a lot of interest in giving cows more opportunity to become pregnant as soon as possible. So that's why you have to be more dedicated and to resynchronize cows as soon as possible after their first service. So that's where our interest came into light. So providing GnRH treatments prior to the first pregnancy diagnosis in order to set cows up for success in the development of the follicle. So once they're diagnosed as open, they can be bred on the following week if they are open. So yeah, just shortening the interval between services, it was our main interest in that.
Okay.
Yep, interesting.
So what were your findings from your study?
So in our study, we're comparing basically 3 treatments. All of them included OVSync at the end. In the case of the control group, that only received OVSync, and we also had 2 treatments that had 1 GnRH prior to the start of OVSync, and 2 GnRHs, the other treatment had 2 GnRHs prior to the start of OVSync. The main findings have to do with that all the treatments were effective in inducing multiple corpus lutea, so indicating that all these treatments were effective in synchronizing cows, setting them up for success after OVSync. And also, we have, according to our more recently model, we collected daily samples of the cows starting on day 16 all the way to day 28 post-AI. We're able to measure a protein in the cow's blood that was very highly correlated with pregnancy. So with that protein, we can use a calculation to estimate the time that the embryo attaches to the uterus.
So what is it that determines when attachment takes place?
We can use this protein to if you put in a calculation, which is basically an increase of 12.5% from the cow's baseline. So we use the cow as her own control. And that has to be in addition to 2 daily increases. So 2 days following that first increase of that same or greater increase. So 12.5% or greater. And that would indicate that the embryo attached to the uterus at that first increase. So that's very, very it's 100% accurate in predicting that increase in pregnant cows.
So when does that implantation typically take place?
So that's where the most interesting finding came to light, because normally that could take place anytime between day 19 to day 25. However, the cows that have later time to attachment, more specifically the cows on day 22 or later, they're highly more likely to lose that pregnancy. So that opens up a whole new universe for us to figure out what's driving that later attachment and how to bring these cows to an earlier attachment. Yeah.
Okay, so that's early embryonic death at that point. Is that how it's counted or not?
Yeah, we call it pregnancy loss.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, these cows that have later attachment, they're way more likely to lose pregnancy. Yeah. So we just call it pregnancy loss.
Ellison, you're obviously a very bright and articulate young man and got a bright future ahead of you. Give me a little idea of what your aspirations are. What are you going to do after you complete your master's degree?
So yeah, I recently just graduated from a master's degree this spring,
okay.
And I started my first study. Actually, this study's on hold right now because I'm at ADSA. But I started my first study of my PhD.
Okay.
So, and after my PhD...
Still at Michigan State?
Yes,
yeah, okay.
With Dr. Pursley.
Okay.
His brilliant mind,
Yep.
It caught us.
Yep.
But yeah, so I plan on finishing my PhD with Dr. Pursley and then pursuing a career in science.
Okay.
Dairy science.
Okay. In academia, you're going to go into industry? Do you know yet? I don't want to push you anyway, but if you're interested in going to industry.
I mean, at this point...
We'll hold a spot for you.
Yeah, it's really hard to make that decision right now, but I'm leaning towards more the academia side of it.
Okay.
Because as I mentioned, there's this whole new universe that opened up in reproduction that we got to investigate. So I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
But it's, as I said, it's really hard to make the decision in your first semester of your PhD.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, thank you very much for stopping by to spend some time with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is the winner of the PhD poster contest, Jackson Seminara from Cornell University. He's in the vet school there, I understand, and you're in your first year of your PhD program. So welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in New York City.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right downtown, and now you're in agriculture.
Yeah, definitely a big change for me. But I just found out that I was really interested in production science when I was at Cornell for undergrad.
Yeah.
And it kind of changed my life, and so I decided to go into that as a career.
Good for you.
So what was your undergraduate degree?
In animal science at Cornell. And I kind of bounced around through a bunch of different sort of research labs as I was going through my degree, but I ended up in the Cornell sheep program. And I know it's kind of a stretch from sheep to cows, but that really taught me that I was interested in production science, and what better production science is there than that with dairy cows? So
we would agree.
Yeah. So the title of your poster was Calcium Dynamics and Associated Patterns of Milk Constituents in Early Lactation in Multiparous Holsteins. So tell us what the thesis of your poster was.
Okay. So we were hoping to find some sort of difference in milk constituent profiles between cows that had different kinds of blood calcium dynamics. And what I mean by that is, for cows at the onset of lactation, the mammary gland becomes a sink for calcium. And this causes a lot of cows to become hypocalcemic at some point during early lactation, but it doesn't happen for all cows the same way. And some cows recover very nicely, but some cows do not. And we wanted to find a way to identify these cows that do not recover, because those cows are at a greater risk of negative health events.
Mm-hmm.
So there were 4 groups of cows that you identified. Can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. So if you look at serum total calcium concentration at day 1 and day 4 in milk, you'll find that there are there's 4 different ways that a cow can sort of respond to the increased demand for calcium. And they are that the cow can remain normal calcemic for the entirety of that time. They can drop into hypocalcemia at day 1, but then recover by day 4, and that's the transient group. The persistent group is the third group, and they become hypocalcemic at parturition and do not recover. And then the delayed group is the group that starts out normal calcemic, but then by day 4 has descended into hypocalcemia. And the reason those groups are important is, like I said, those two, the persistent and delayed cows, they are at a much greater risk of negative health events. And interestingly enough, to identify the transient cows was also an important objective of our study, because the transient cows produce a good bit more milk than any of the other groups. So, yeah.
Nice. So what is FTIR?
Oh, okay. So it's Fourier transform mid-infrared spectroscopic analysis of milk samples.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it's definitely a mouthful. But yeah, so basically the gist of it is that they shine a light, an infrared light through milk samples. And there's a couple of different ways that they can do it, but basically they shine a light through the milk samples, and whatever comes out the other side is sort of a spectra that they can then use to predict milk constituents from that data.
So what constituents were you looking for in particular in your study?
Well, we wanted to look at lactose, protein, and fat because those are sort of our standard milk components, but we were also very interested in fatty acid profiles and other things like energy-related metabolites such as milk beta-hydroxybutyrate, and we have actually a model for predicting blood non-esterified fatty acid from the milk, and so we were very curious to see what that looked like as well.
So what were your findings?
So what we found is that the cows with different milk constituent profiles, the cows with different calcium dynamics have different milk constituent profiles. And just more specifically, we found that our two healthy groups, the transient and normal calcemic cows, they both have higher levels of protein in their milk, but the less healthy groups have lower levels of protein. But then in terms of other things like fatty acid populations, those groups cluster a little bit differently, and that allows us to identify which cows are in which group.
So do you have any thoughts on why the milk protein levels would be different?
I'm not totally sure. I would think part of this has to be feed intake, and we didn't actually look at that, so that's got to be something that we look at going forward. But there's a couple of other theories floating around in our lab, like calcium-mediated exocytosis in the mammary gland epithelial cells. That could be related somehow. It's not entirely clear, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that.
Wow, very interesting.
Do you have enough learnings to have any practical implications?
Yeah, there's definitely some practical implications here. At the beginning level, we're hoping to develop an algorithm that uses this milk FTIR data to predict which cows are going to be healthy, which cows are not going to be healthy. And so that's something that, a farmer could potentially send out to a lab and get that analysis done and find out which of their cows are going to be healthy. But in the sort of deep future, we're thinking precision dairying might involve inline milk sensing of these constituents. And in that kind of situation, these algorithms will also be very important because it will allow us to identify cows that are sick, like without going to a lab or anything. It'll all be on farm, and you won't have to touch the cows or collect a blood sample or anything like that. So it could have some value in the future as precision dairying evolves.
Yeah, good. Very interesting. Very interesting conversation. So what's the future for Jackson? I know it's just your beginning of your PhD degree, but where do you see yourself going?
For now, I've got to finish the DVM PhD. Yeah, it's gonna be a grind. It's another 6 years, so I'm just in for the long haul. But after that, I'd love to go into academia. That's kind of where I hope to see myself. But industry is also an appealing option. It really depends on kind of where the wind takes me.
Yeah.
But academia is probably my first choice.
Yeah. Awesome. Listen, well, thank you for joining us tonight, Jackson. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Cool.
All right.
Cool. Thank you.
And our next guest is Ursula Abujela from Michigan State University, and she is the winner of the Master's Oral Presentation. She's also got her advisor here, Andreas Contreras.
Thank you.
In the VET program at Michigan State University. Ursula, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, thank you for having me. So I'm originally from Beirut, Lebanon. I was born and raised in Lebanon. I moved to the U.S. about 7 years ago for my undergrad to Michigan State University. So I got my bachelor's degree in animal science at Michigan State. I graduated in 2020 and then immediately started my graduate program in Dr. Contreras' lab.
Very well. So the presentation you gave, the title was Oleic Acid Limits Lipolysis and Improved Mitochondrial Function in Adipose Tissue from Periparturient Dairy Cows. Tell us about the thesis of your project.
So this work was done in collaboration with another lab in the Animal Science Department at Michigan State. For that project, we wanted to look at the effects of oleic acid on the adipose tissue and more specifically lipid metabolism. So we know all these benefits of oleic acid supplementation and also during the early postpartum period on cow health and production. So we wanted to look more into physiology, like the physiology in the cow, what is happening, especially in the adipose tissue.
So why oleic acid?
Oh, that's a good question. So we all know that during the postpartum period, the cow is in negative energy balance. And that's pretty normal because she mobilizes a lot of fat to support milk production and energy requirements. So in order to improve energy intake and reduce this negative energy balance, one of the ways to do that is through fatty acid supplementation. And oleic acid has been shown to improve production and also minimize that body weight and body condition score losses. So that's why in this project we focus on oleic acid to see how it is actually decreasing or minimizes this body condition score loss.
So what were your findings then?
In this study, we infused the cows with 60 grams of oleic acid per day in the abomasum. Starting from the first day after calving up until 14 days. We took adipose tissue biopsies, and what I personally did, I focused on looking at the adipose tissue to look at insulin sensitivity. And we saw that oleic acid improved insulin sensitivity in the tissue. It also minimized lipid mobilization. And we also saw that oleic acid improved mitochondrial function in the adipose tissue.
Did you measure performance of the cows?
Production-wise?
Yeah.
Yes, we did. But the focus of the study was more on the metabolic side. So we only had 12 cows. We didn't see production response due to that.
Are there other fatty acids that would cause similar responses or not, or is this specific to oleic acid in these early lactation cows?
Not us specifically, but there are evidence for palmitic acid supplementation benefits also during the postpartum period. I wouldn't know specifically what would happen in the adipose tissue with palmitic acid since that's not the focus of my research. I haven't tested it. But there could be potential for other fatty acids to have similar effects.
So what about later in lactation? So is the oleic acid, is it affecting lipogenesis?
It is. We're seeing that it is affecting lipogenesis, promoting lipogenesis during that especially during that negative energy balance. And there are benefits for oleic acid also later in lactation, and cows have been supplemented with oleic acid later in lactation.
Yeah, Dr. Contreras, I feel kind of bad. She's done such a great job. You haven't had anything to say. What can you tell us about Ursula, the student?
Oh, she's great.
Yeah, isn't she though? I mean,
She takes this is a master's level research that looks like a PhD.
Yes, it's very impressive.
That's why she's gonna stay in my lap and do a PhD. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So is that your career track? You're going to go on for your PhD?
That's my plan, yes. I love the Contreras lab so much and the Colombians that I decided that I want to stay and pursue a PhD.
Okay. And after that, any ideas yet, or just kind of keeping your avenues open?
I do have some ideas, and actually attending ADSA has helped me a lot, and networking and talking to a lot of professionals and industry people has opened my eye to all the different opportunities that I might have in the future. I'm leaning more towards industry and doing research within the industry. I wouldn't see myself, or I shouldn't say that, maybe that would change, but as of right now, I just don't see myself in academia.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see you wherever you want to go. You're a very bright young lady, and the future's bright for you. So I want to thank you for coming and spending some time with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, very well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And our next winner is Thina Minella from Michigan State University. Thina was a winner of the PhD oral competition. Thina, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Very nice to be here, first of all. It's amazing to...
Well, it's nice to have you here.
Yeah, experiencing this. My name is Thina Minella. I'm from Brazil, actually, southern Brazil. Small little town in the west part of my state. So if you guys get, an audience from an odd city, it'll probably be my friends watching this video. So increase your views. And I went to vet school in Santa Maria, Federal University of Santa Maria, and did an internship with Dr. Pursley to conclude my degree in vet school. And from there it was kind of, natural. We worked really well together and did my master's with him and stayed for the PhD as well. Just kept going. In Brazil we say you don't change teams that are winning, so we just kept going.
Yeah. Now, do you have your PhD yet? Have you completed
No,
that?
I'm a second year
Second
PhD
year.
student. Yeah.
Okay. Very well. Now, the title of your presentation was Lactating Cows Inseminated Following Estrus Have Greater Early Pregnancy Losses Compared to the Double Ovusync.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Tell us what the thesis of that research was.
Yeah, so my thesis is focusing on trying to understand how pregnancy losses occur and also investigating common reproductive managements that we use on dairy farms and how they play a role into this pregnancy loss phenomena. Because it's not something really we get a lot of data that we could understand this with a good baseline. So if you think about it, for the past 90 years, our first pregnancy diagnosis is at around 35 days. So when you report fertility, that's the common thing, right? Like pregnancies per AI at 35 days. So we don't have a good reference before that. But we developed a model that we can start looking at pregnancies around 20, 21 days, 22, 23. So there's some variability in there as well. And that was correlated with pregnancy losses. The time they have conceptus attachment, that's the term we utilize. So yeah, it's been a journey. It's a new model. So this is all really novel data, and we're excited about it.
So I have to tell you, this nutritionist learned a lot from
Yeah, I'm glad.
from watching your presentation.
Yes, I try to be as educational as possible.
So what is Pspb?
Pregnancy-specific protein B. Yeah, said that a lot of times.
So what's the significance of that protein?
So this protein, as it says, is specific to pregnancy and is produced by the embryo. So it has a cool migratory behavior. So it goes from the side of the embryo, migrates into the side of the mother, and fuses with the maternal cells. And when it does that, it releases proteins into the maternal circulation. And that's when we know conceptus attachment happens, because these proteins only are in circulation if there's an embryo there. So Alison and I go to the farm every day, collect blood samples, and then we looked at daily Pspb increases, and we can know when conceptus attachment happen, and that's our new reference. And Pspb is also, it may have an endocrine function, but that's also unclear. So there's a lot of people working with that and trying to understand the function of that protein into pregnancy.
So is there an on-farm test for
Yes,
PSPB?
absolutely.
Yeah?
Or no, the ELISA? No, it's a lab test, sorry.
Oh, okay.
The data collection is a lot of farm work, yeah.
And how long does it take the test to complete?
Usually if you can send out the samples, it would be 2 days to get your results. Or if you have a Thina Minella that can go to the lab, you could get the next day, and do that. But what we do, we work with Bioprint and we send the samples to them and they run it for us retrospectively. So we don't have our results as we are doing the study.
Okay.
So what were your findings comparing double off-sync to natural estrus?
Yeah, so what we saw is that cows that are inseminated following natural estrus have greater early pregnancy losses. And that was kind of in the back of our minds when we were doing this study, because other studies reported that cows on the double off-sync program have greater fertility in comparison to cows that receive AI following estrus. So we always wonder, is it really a conception problem, so the cows are not conceiving, or they're losing the pregnancy before we even detected that pregnancy? And that's kind of what we see. We see the increase in Pspb, there's an embryo there, but for some reason the pregnancy is not maintained. So that's a question for another grad student probably. I have 2 more projects, but I don't know if I'll be able to answer why those happen.
So do we know what controls when implantation takes place?
What do you mean?
When that embryo actually implants in the uterus?
So usually is followed by maternal recognition of pregnancy. So before the physical communication, you need to have a chemical kind of a text message, I like to call.
Yeah.
So the embryo sends a text message to the mom, and the text says interferon tau, that's the message, and says, I'm here, please don't kill the corpus luteum, I need progesterone. So then after that, we have attachment. So when the embryo is long enough to occupy the uterus and have the actual physical attachment to the uterus, that's when we see the increase in the Pspb. So it's kind of a timing thing, as the pregnancy progresses, it just happens organically.
I can see how you make things so easy to understand. Even a marketing guy like myself can understand these. Well,
Nice.
I'm not saying I understand it, but at least I have some.
You can picture?
I can picture it. Yes, exactly.
That's why I'm here.
Excellent job and congratulations. So,
Thank you.
You're in your PhD program, and what's the plans after you graduate?
So, as you guys can notice, I really like to teach, but I really like research as well. So I'd like to occupy a position as a PI, but perhaps have some teaching experience as well on that position. But then I also like extension a lot. So I'm kind of keeping my options open in that regard. I think I really be just working in the dairy industry would be something I really enjoy. But right after the PhD, I think I also need to get away from Dr. Pursley because it's a comfort zone, right? We work well together,
Yeah.
but I think I gotta kind of grow up and just live my own adventures and maybe change a little bit the pace. So try and change advisors probably and do a postdoc somewhere else.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thina, this has been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us
no
tonight.
problem.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
you.
And our final guest this evening here at the Ice Cream Social is Connor McCabe. Connor is the Dairy Production Director for GSD. Connor was also involved in helping set all this up, so I've been really looking forward to this, Connor, and meeting you in person finally, right? We had some conversations virtually, but this is a treat. Give us a little bit of background and an overview of yourself.
Sure, certainly. And we're so glad that Balchem is a partner with GSD and able to help put on this event and uplift what the work our students are doing. And it's thankful for partners like you and other sponsors we've had throughout this meeting that have really made it the most of the week for all of us here in Kansas City. A little bit about me. I'm originally from Oregon, West Coast originally. Grew up on my family's. We had Christmas trees, pumpkin farm, growing up, and so
cows.
no dairy cows. But my mom was a dairy princess, so you can say that the lineage started way before I was born.
Nice.
But I did hogs with 4-H, and then had that interest in animal science, and went to Cornell, went clear across country, West Coast, East Coast. And there's a lot more dairy cows, of course, in upstate New York, and I started gaining more appreciation for that with Mike Van Amberg and Tom Overton doing research there. Continued on from that, did a master's degree at Purdue University with Jackie Borman, where I completed that in December 2020, working around tissue mobilization and transition cows. And then I've always all along had an interest in the environment, the impact of cattle production. What is the true meaning of that? How can we reduce it? And what are some of our options out there? And so January 21, I started my PhD with Frank Mittlerner at UC Davis. And a lot of my research that I presented here this week was looking at what are different methane mitigation scenarios for California through 2030, and what impact does that truly have on climate, given methane's strong impact and warming ability, but it has a very short lifespan. And so understanding that, and that's what brings me here today. But I've helped and glad to have served as a GSD representative and member of the board over the last year. So.
Yeah. So speaking of that, what are the responsibilities of the dairy production director?
Yes. So we didn't define our roles too much over this last year. We kind of all played a part in making this event happen and come together. One piece I had in particular is representing the interest of those grad students who are coming from the production division. That is the larger of the two divisions we have here at ADSA between foods and production, and coming to the production meetings and giving the grad student input or report back on what we're doing. But one of the main things I took part in this planning for this meeting was for fundraising pieces and talking to different industry groups and acquiring funds so we could increase the networking opportunities for our students, help lower that costs, and really help them make the most of their time here in Kansas City, because those relationships that we form right now, they're gonna go real far, because this industry is so very tight knit, and we think it's a lot of fun here coming. We don't do all that work for this week, but it's an enjoyable experience, I think, for all to be able to take up at least a few days outside the barn, outside the lab, to come here to Kansas City or wherever ADSA is and get some and meet some of the other aspiring dairy scientists out there.
So when does your term as a dairy production director end?
So that will probably be tomorrow.
Tomorrow
is the end of it. So I am coming up on the end of my sunset ride into as the term as production director. But I just found out about 6 hours ago that my time on the board will not be ending, as I will be continuing on as ADSA GSD Vice President.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. For this next year, and that'll be continuing on to a 2-year term as president. So you haven't seen the last of me. I'll continue on and hopefully making this event memorable, and wanting to continue with that event planning for our students next year in Ottawa, and that following year in West Palm Beach as well. So
yeah. So tell us about next year. What can we look forward to? Anything new?
Certainly. So we'll be going to Ottawa. So that's definitely, I think, the first time ADSA has been outside the U.S. in quite a few years, and so we're hoping that as people are getting more used to traveling, be close to the Northeast, easier for some schools, and a little bit more difficult for others. One event that ADSA has been doing a lot of strategic planning throughout this meeting, throughout this last year. Of course, I haven't been at the heart of it, but I'll be getting more involved. But I think we really want to look and figure out how can we look at ADSA as not just a time of year when you come and present something, or a time of year when you submit an abstract in February, but really how can we help students build their skill set and have a way to build off that, along with a mentoring program that we want to work with groups such as ARPIS, who we partnered with through this meeting to create a mentoring program between individuals who are mid to late career, to help provide that advice because we're really good at the technical skills, technical side of things, but when it comes to those soft skill aspects, making that transition from that grad life into that early career, there's many things that we don't know, and those kind of opportunities and having those relationships, I think would help a lot. So that's something that I'm hoping to help put together or add a little bit of what I would like to do in this next year. But I think we have a lot of opportunities on where we could go off this very successful meeting here.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, that's great.
So after you complete your Scholastic career, what do you see yourself doing?
Yes, so I certainly have a little bit more time here at Davis. Well, not here. We're not in Davis. We're in the Midwest right now, but I have probably 2 or 3 more years still to go before I finish up. But given my background in technical and looking at environmental impact of dairy, what we can do to reduce said emissions, I see myself in being. I want to be a sustainability lead in a company from either the agriculture side or the consumer oriented side. So thinking about how do we reduce emissions from livestock supply chains using science-based, evidence-based outcomes, so that we can really drive change at the consumer level, and take things from talking about it and actually implement that from some of the science and some of the research that I'm going to be able to take part in. And I think this is one of the most exciting times to be in this area right now, and super blessed for the opportunities that have been given to me, and ADSA has super helped out in building out my network and getting to meet many of the individuals who are going to be right up alongside me as I finish up that career and going into whatever comes next.
Whatever comes next, absolutely.
Exactly.
Scott, I think we need to hire him.
Yeah, I know. Well, I can tell you whatever comes next is that you and the fellow students, that you've got a big challenge ahead of you. There's a lot of changing in agriculture, and a lot of people going to be counting on you. But from what I've been able to see this week, the kids that and I shouldn't call them kids, the young adults that we've had an opportunity to talk to, they're up to the challenge. I've been blown away. I've been very impressed.
That's awesome.
So listen, I appreciate the opportunity. This has been a sincere pleasure, and look forward to maybe doing it next year.
Yes. No, we'd love to have you back, and I'm sure we can have a whole set of new faces coming across this panel next year for you.
Sounds good. I look forward to it.
Thanks, Connor.
All right. Thanks, Connor.
Thank you, Neil.
We'd love to hear your comments or ideas for topics and guests, so please reach out via email to anh.marketing@balchem.com with any suggestions, and we'll work hard to add them to the schedule. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating on your way out. You can request your Real Science Exchange t-shirt in just a few easy steps. Just like or subscribe to the Real Science Exchange and send us a screenshot along with your address and t-shirt size to anh.marketing@balchem.com. Balchem's Real Science Lecture Series of webinars continues with ruminant-focused topics on the first Tuesday of every month, monogastric-focused topics on the second Tuesday of each month, and quarterly topics for the companion animal segment. Visit balchem.com/realscience to see the latest schedule and to register for upcoming webinars.